Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, the Zoning Board of Appeals for April 25th, 2024. The time is 6:13 p.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Welsh.
Here.
Dushman. Boardman. Stocko.
Yes.
Skelton.
Present. Great, thank you. And then the third item on the agenda, I will ask for a motion and action to name a chairperson for tonight's meeting.
I make a motion to call Tom Stotko chairman for tonight.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great, Tom, I will let you take it over.
All right, we're gonna adjourn into a public hearing now. Public notice variance of 10-foot rear yard setback located on a vacant lot off County Road H and Proctor Drive. Tax key YA 414900001. Any comments, Allison, on?
So I will actually make my comments next in item number 5, and the petitioner will make his comments after me at item number 6. So you can ask if there's any public members that want to speak and then close.
Excuse me, we
All
need a
right.
motion to adjourn into the hearing.
Yes, thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn into the hearing in public.
I second.
Is there anyone here to speak? Is there, second time, anyone here to speak on this? Third time? Anyone here to speak? Public hearing's closed.
Well,
Oh.
just a point of order, let's just keep it open because the petitioners are going to present as part of the public hearing, I'm sure. right?
Okay.
Why they think they're entitled to a variance, so let's just keep it open, even though the members of the public didn't appear, it's still,
Okay.
public hearing still technically open while we take testimony.
And then we have the zoning administrator next on here.
Okay, great. So I will just go over the project history a little bit with you all. So the applicant, Joseph Doherty, submitted a site plan and conditional use permit application to the City of Elkhorn Planning Commission. With that application submittal, I noted that the rear yard setback was not in compliance with our setback requirements of the zoning district in which the property is located in. Currently, the property is zoned M1 Light Manufacturing District, which requires a 25-foot rear yard setback. This permit application was denied due to the rear yard setback only being 10 feet. The property owner and Ferris Hansen then applied for a variance request to build within that rear yard setback at a 10-foot setback in the rear yard off of the building to the lot line. So in your packet, you have just my memo. You have the site plan, which you can review. It's a pretty straightforward appeal, I guess you could say, in that all they're asking for is to go from 25 feet to 10 feet. You will also find in your packet and in the email that went out to all Board of Appeals members, an email from the fire chief with concerns about fire access and fire protection with the 10-foot setback. The fire chief had mentioned that he would not be able to get a fire truck back there on that property to adequately put out a fire with a 10-foot setback off of the rear lot line. Storage units could potentially be extremely combustible because of the type of materials that could potentially be stored in each unit. There's an unknown there, whether there's gasoline, oil, vehicles, that sort of thing, construction materials. So the fire chief did express his concern with the 10-foot rear yard setback due to safety, and then also the proximity to the non-conforming building to the north, I guess you could say, of this parcel. So, in my opinion, I feel that the property owner has not provided sufficient substantial evidence or sufficient evidence that they have a hardship to request this variance, as the lot size is of sufficient size to make a site plan work without a variance. So that's what I have.
Okay. Warren? Do you-
All right. I'd like to present our arguments, if I can. Warren Hanson with Ferris Hanson and Associates, representing Joe Doherty. He's with me, and he's with Certum Midwest Storage. They have a number of these storage facilities across the United States. The total land area is about 3.5 acres, 3.4 acres. And I brought some ortho mapping along here with me tonight, and that shows certain things that I wanted to present as a reason for this. The biggest reason that we had this at one time 25 feet, and we had a different building and set that there. But the neighbors, Sweetener Supply, I did talk to them. Their only concerns were drainage was a concern of theirs, and the public access, so to speak, or they felt it that way. I think that was the sense I got, that with a driveway there along the property line with people driving behind their building, that was a concern. And so what we did was to move the building back, and it had doors on that side. So if we have to move the building back with 25 feet, we would have doors on the east side then. So in this particular arrangement, we have no doors on the east side. And you know, there's fencing with gates that can go through to that side. But that's what we got, just a nice heavy landscaping. The roof having drainage draining all to the east, not to the west, away from the other side yard. And that's what we did with that. Now, if you look at their property, meaning Sweetener Supply, the one to the east, and you look at where their driveway is, it's directly east of the building.
I think that'd be west, Warren.
Got east and west going backwards there.
Say that again?
I think it's actually, you've been saying
Oh,
east,
yeah,
but I think it's west. Just to clarify.
Did I say east? Yes, it is west. So that's west. So so that particular line there to the west is their basically rear yard under that definition, because the driveway access to theirs is basically straight west of the building. And this would be east of the building. That one corner there is 9 feet off the property line, and the other corner where they have a wall and fencing for a structure, that's 18 feet off the lot line. And they have a big backyard, which I call as the backyard to the railroad. And that right of way for the railroad is going to be used for hiking, biking trails, and whatever other public use are going to be used for that. So it was felt then that we would change and move that way so we wouldn't have any conflict with them relative to public driving and access there that way. We have a full access all the way along the building, and that building is only 20 foot in depth, not 40 feet. It's only 20 feet in depth. And as far as access goes, we have fire turning lanes everywhere on that site that the fire department wanted to have. So all the way around that, we have access. And if we look at other rear yards going all the way down the railroad corridor there, they're all on that side. You know, they have a good offset from that. Our average offset is 43 feet. That one on top is 41, then we got 55, and we have 52. So we have a big access there. And we have to have 50 feet on the street side, the Highway H side. So we have a 50-foot front yard setback there rather than something lesser that's on some of the side streets. We have 50 feet there. So, in a nutshell, this is it satisfies the neighbors' concerns. I guess there's a concern for if there was a fire on that particular building. I mean, you got access from the other side and you got access through the gates, but I don't know what to say. It's only 20 foot of building. There are other buildings in the industrial park, and I'm not going to say that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying there are others, McGill and Huttapack and other ones that don't have rear yards of 25 feet. You know, that there's precedence out there that way, and they had good reasons for it too, I'm sure. So that's what we're asking. We're asking for that consideration and whatever else we can do. That whole wall then will look like a planted wall. There's no doors in it. There's nothing in it at all. That's just a blank wall with a landscaped edge to it, and the gates that would come into the corners with a fencing, and then the gates would be accessible too. You can go through them, but
You're saying gates here at this location here?
did you say so?
Yeah, did you say gates at like this location here? Can you see on my cursor on the screen?
Oh, no. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Where would the gates be located at? That I can hear?
Oh, that?
I thought you mentioned there'd be gates on the other
That's a
side.
fence connection.
Okay, I thought you mentioned gates.
Oh, there's not a gate shown, I guess, yeah.
But they would be at this location here?
Yeah.
Okay. And then this location as well?
Yes. So, so all of the drainage then would be directed to the east, to the road in front of it, and then there's a swale in that would take it down to the stormwater basin. Just blew this up a little bit from the ortho. This is our project site. Here's their building. Here's the entrance right here. The rear yard under that definition would be this yard. But they were already close to it, so I don't know that matters one way or other. Our setback from this will follow this line right down here. And that's that red line there. We wanted to get this entrance as far south as we could. So we have one little drive in here and then all of these branches go out. And then that's our rear yard. We put a private road in there and our rear yard is behind to the right. Another law for the same thing. It just shows what all that would be. And I did bring along a picture of the whole industrial park. There are some other buildings that are rear yards. Another thing I suppose we could do, if the fire department was concerned, we could break that building into two buildings and have a fire lane in there closer so that their requirement is with 150 feet. So if we split that building, the long one there, in two and had a 20-foot wide opening in there, then they would be within 150 feet of any point
but I suppose it could actually come from the neighbors there to fight the fire.
This one?
That one.
This is West End, and this is Sweetener Supply.
Right, so at Sweeteners, you could still, with a fire truck, access that back building
Yeah,
to a point. I mean,
well, you could get around it, sure, all the way around. This, at one time, this was connected to Proctor. And many years ago, I don't know, you might remember when that was. The city had this land as a piece that was connected to the back here. And then this got sold to, I believe, this neighbor here. And then that trail went in, bike trail. So, that no longer been provided access to this property. So it was private off of that, I know.
so Allison, if they did split the building into two and had a space, would that work, or are we still, because we're the 10 feet, not the 25? I'm just looking at it from the fire aspect of it.
Sure. So I can't necessarily answer that for the fire department, but it would not help the variance in any way because they would still be requesting a 10-foot setback.
If Mr. Hansen's done, the board could ask any questions of Mr. Hansen.
I might
Right.
add one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, if we can't have that building there and we have got 25 feet, then we're all at the minimums. That building will just have to go away completely, I guess. Or we go back up closer to the railroad, old railroad right away. I'd rather not do that though. I think it fits better much this way.
So the project's doable, it's just that you would lose a building, and the income that,
That's one thing I would. Yeah, I don't understand why they were able to do that, you know? I mean, that's also a situation, but it's not, I'm not claiming that, I'm just claiming the reasons why we thought this was a reasonable request. And that was basically due to the neighbor and what his concerns were with people driving in through there and the public and door openings facing him. And also the drainage, because the drainage was there would be a lot of drainage coming down that road.
Anybody have any questions for Warren?
Is it open for questioning?
Yeah.
I'd like to know where the existing non-conforming structures are there, and I mean, they might be perfectly legal non-conforming structures that you refer to as being smaller rear yards. I mean, the zoning ordinances change from time to time, and they might be in a different zoning.
Before the zoning, you mean?
Yes.
No, that's also a new building.
No, which building has got less than a 25-foot rear yard that you referred to? You said McGill?
Yeah.
That's less than, can you see where that is?
I think he was saying, this is Sweetener Supply, correct?
Yeah.
That's right behind him?
That's right.
So was what Warren mentioned, I think, please say so, but I believe that the dimension from this corner of the building to the lot line you mentioned was 9. It's not dimensioned on this plan set, but you said this was 9 feet?
Yeah, that's what
So I could kind of, I'll show that, I could show that on this aerial too. So
I think it's 9.5 or something, like whatever, that was something.
So this is Sweetener Supply here, and this is the corner that Warren had referenced as being 9 feet. I think he said over here that this structure that has these,
Yeah, that's a concrete structure with walls on it.
I don't remember, what did you say, but this was 14, 18, I'm sorry, 18.
But that's not a rear yard. I don't believe that's the rear yard for Sweetener Supply. I think the rear yard is along the railroad. My guess is that was the side yard. But, I mean, we can talk about all the other buildings in the park, but I think we need to focus on this one because, I mean, this is the most clear, to me, the most clear explanation of a rear yard is that rear yard. The fact that it's up against, if that is the side yard from Sweetener Supply, that's not unusual. The ordinance even shows that in their diagrams, that you can have rear yards against side yards, that's not, and there's a definition of a rear yard, and I believe that the zoning administrator has properly addressed that.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that she did, but I'm just saying, this one, if you use that same argument, it's the yard behind the entrance, straight behind the entrance.
Well, like I said, I'm not gonna get into what happened over here, or what happened at McGill's, or what happened at Hudapack. This is what's before us, and that's what we should be focused on. And I took a look at the.
I thought it was reasonable to do that in this case.
I took a look at there's a mirror image lot right across the railroad here that was platted by Ferris Hansen back in 2020, I believe it was, 2020, and it shows the side yard along the railroad. I mean, this is the same lot. There's a side yard along the railroad. There's a rear yard that's behind Sweetener Supply. So I don't, all these arguments about somebody else has this and somebody else has that, I think we can't look at that.
That was an argument, just mentioned, it
Uh-huh.
wasn't an argument. The only thing I was saying, that for the reasons I stated, with respect to my discussion with Sweetener Supply, that seemed the best solution to it. That would basically screen them off from this activity.
25-foot setback would do them quite well too. I mean,
Well, 25 feet, yeah, when I would put a road there, and then
Yeah.
we got building openings.
it's an industrial park. I don't-
So Warren, anywhere else, so let's say you didn't have that building. Is there anywhere else on the property that you could put a smaller building up somewhere, or somewhere else where a partial building could fit in, or no?
Yeah, well, I don't think so, because we got minimum 25-foot streets, roadways inside, and they're all that. And that's our front yard there. The only way, there isn't any other way, I don't think,
Okay.
unless we pushed everything up Pike to the railroad there, and I don't think I would want to do.
Anybody else have any questions for Warren? We down to number 10 then?
I
So
believe
would-
number 7, number 7 is where we're currently at, I believe.
a rebuttal then?
Sure. So what I can add to this discussion, just to clarify a couple of things for the Zoning Board of Appeals. The parcel that this prospective project is located on, the entrance, the ingress and egress come off of County Highway H. This parcel is unique to the rest of the industrial park in that every other parcel comes off of Proctor Drive, and therefore their rear yard is to the railroad. However, with this parcel, their entrance and exit come off of County Highway H. That is their street yard or their front yard. The railroad side is their side yard. And then the area that has the 10-foot proposed setback requirement is their rear yard. That is defined in our ordinance as the rear yard. Some of the other properties within the industrial park may very well be legal non-conforming. However, it is not good practice to continue to allow buildings to be built that do not adhere to all of our code requirements. And I don't believe it's good practice to build buildings that close to each other. Just because the neighbor has a legal non-conforming building does not mean that this development should be developed with setbacks that do not meet our current code standards.
Well, further comment, I guess, is that setback and what the neighbor has does meet state code, okay, requirements as far as offsets from the property line and other things, it does meet that. So that's code violation.
I didn't hear that.
Can you
I
talk
didn't-
into
I
the
didn't hear that.
microphone?
I didn't hear that it was anybody said it was a code violation. It's an ordinance violation of the city of Elkhorn, but not a, I didn't think it was a code.
I know what that's proposed as.
Building code, I didn't hear any discussion on building code. I must have missed it.
You gotta go back to the page.
I don't have anything further, unless anybody has any questions for me.
So, I'd close the hearing and then we can go into a closed session meeting with,
So I'm recommending that you do not go into closed. You do have the option to go into closed session on rare occasions. I actually looked this up before I came just to see, like the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and their attorneys to, if you have a contested case, and that usually means you've got attorneys on either side and lots of evidence, and you need to talk about legal issues, you can meet in closed. But your usual variance hearings, you should do the deliberations in open. That's my recommendation anyway.
But you can close the public hearing, correct?
Yes,
the public hearing part's closed.
a motion would be great.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So motion now, anybody want to make a motion on the variance?
I'll make a motion that we deny the variance based on the lack of hardship.
I'll second.
Do we do roll call?
I think we should have some discussion about it.
Okay,
just so that you
discussion.
make in the record, and it's really clear why you made the decision you made.
All right,
So, the motion was to deny the variance?
Yes.
Because of a lack of showing of a hardship.
Correct. Well, that's, yeah, and it would also set a precedence for future variances. That would be another reason. I think the zoning administrator said it perfectly, that the lot is not a useless lot. You can certainly build on it, and it's a viable, buildable lot. Probably one of the nicer lots in Walworth County. It's pretty level. I don't know about the soil. I'm not gonna go there, but it's open. There's not much in the way. I think doesn't need to be wall-to-wall building. And I also would like to cite the memo from the fire chief that he has real concerns about the setback. So I think there's a multitude of things we could
okay.
So just to jump in, there are two standards depending on whether someone's seeking a use variance, which is not the case here. A use variance is when somebody's asking to do something that's not allowed in your zoning code. It's a use that's not permitted. In this case, they're asking for a use that is permitted, but they're asking for an area variance. So in that situation, what they have to show is that that complying with the zoning ordinance would unreasonably prevent them from using the property for a permitted purpose, or would render conformity with the zoning ordinance unnecessarily burdensome. So, so and you focused on the fact that, I think your three reasons were, there's no hardship, it would show a precedent, and the fire chief's recommendation. I think you also mentioned a fourth thing. I'm just trying to get everything down for the decision. A fourth thing would be that the development can still take place. It just won't have the same number of buildings.
Well, I'm not saying that it can't, I'm just
Right,
saying
right.
that.
You're saying
Yeah, not in that configuration, it can't have the same number of buildings if they, I mean.
Denying it isn't gonna hinder the
right,
development.
I mean, there's all kinds of things that play into the number of buildings, the location and size of the stormwater. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do to meet the setback requirements. And
to the property owner's benefit, there was testimony that contact was made with the neighbor and an attempt to accommodate drainage concerns and access concerns by the public with some over-the-top landscaping to make sure that, that was taken care of. And that's laudable.
Yeah.
But I think you're focusing just in on what supports a variance finding. Correct? Okay.
correct.
What was handed out to you in your packet is like a decision form. You can use this as a guide if you'd like, or you can actually fill it out. But it's a form that can be used in the future as well. So this talks about the matter that's before you, the parcel number, the property, on page 1, the property's vacant. C talks about a non-conforming structure, that's not applicable. D talks about whether it was the subject of a prior variance or conditional use, that's not applicable. There's no testimony about it being in a floodplain, so presumably not. F just talks about what plans were submitted, and those were all referred to. We've all got packets. G talks about the fact that they're requesting an area variance, which is what we're focusing in on. The features, page 2, the features of the proposed construction and property that relate to the grant or denial of the application or appeal are, and I think you've talked about, it's really the location of that one building
Correct.
in the rear yard. The conclusions of law, they're not contesting a determination that was made by the zoning administrator. Rather, they're under the variance section. And that just talks about the different tests. The hardship has to be related to the limitations of the property rather than the circumstances of the appellant. So you focus on, is there a limitation of the property that would support a variance, or is it a situation where they could develop on it, it's just not the development that they particularly want to put in? B talks about whether the variance will harm the public interest. And then C gets into those definitions that we talked about for an area and a use variance. And then D on page 3 is really the crux of the matter. Unnecessary hardship is or is not present. And I believe the recommendation was is not present.
Right.
And because you've already listed your different factors. So then the order and determination would be the variance. The motion was to deny it. So there's no conditions, because if you granted a variance, you could attach conditions.
Right.
So that's not applicable. And the rest of it is not applicable. The exhibits incorporated by reference, I think, I don't know if those exhibits that were presented down on the floor, if those have been made part of your packet.
They were.
They were? Oh, fantastic. Okay, good. So everything in your packet has already been into the record. I don't think there's any additional documents that were addressed, other than the email from the chief. That's part of the packet as well.
Correct.
I did reference a survey next door. If you want that, I'll get it out.
Would you like this, Tim, entered into?
I think as long as yes, if you could just reference the date of the email and who it's from.
Sure.
All right, so you've got a motion, it's been seconded, you've had your discussion. I'm sorry to make you talk about it.
It's fine, it's knowledge to us.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, so the idea is that if it gets appealed, the circuit court judge, what that judge would do is they would get a copy, a transcript of what's been discussed, what's been submitted, and then they would decide whether there's, whether you met your, whether they met their burden in appealing it or not. So anyway, so it's important to make sure that your record is full and transparent. So I will leave it to you now, and I will be quiet.
So a roll call on the
Yes, I think a roll
motions?
call vote would be great.
Can we reread the motion one more time, so I have it right in my head?
Welch moved to deny the variance because there is no hardship, and you seconded.
Okay, I just wanted to,
So roll call vote, Welsh,
Yes.
Skelton,
yes.
Stocko.
Yes.
Carried.
So, meeting's adjourned?
There's one more matter. It won't take long, I promise.
Yes, there's one more item on tonight's agenda, and it is a discussion on the updates that we're currently working on with the Zoning Board of Appeals ordinance. There's no action required tonight on this. It's really brought to your attention for informational purposes. At our last Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, whenever that was, a few months ago probably, we realized that our current Zoning Board of Appeals ordinance is out of date and that it no longer matches the state statute and requirements within the state ordinance. So Tim's firm has been working with me on an ordinance rewrite. This red-lined version here just kind of gives you all of our notes, everything we're adding in, removing, and then there's also a clean copy attached. We feel like we've gotten it to a point where it's pretty finalized. And again, these changes are only to really come up to standard with the current state statute. There's nothing out of the ordinary that we're adding in to this ordinance that would be outside of the scope of the state statute. So that's what we've been working on. I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, proposed changes, then we can take that into consideration before this would go before the Plan Commission for a public hearing notice so that we can officially move this ordinance forward.
So in this packet, does our current thing with the board is 5, or how many do we need, and what's the voting, and the new one's 3, right?
Yeah, the new one clarifies that you no longer need 4 members to move a variance forward or deny a variance. You need a quorum, a majority of a quorum present, which is why you were able to act tonight with 3. And so a lot of this is just updating, as Allison said, to match the statute. Rebecca Speckhard, or chaperone of our office, and Allison were working on this, so this is their hard work. I'm just showing up to answer any questions. So one of the other things the statute does that we've incorporated into the ordinance is it talks about what is the definition of a variance? What do you mean by a use variance? What do you mean by an area variance? What's required? Whereas before that was not set forth, and now the statute does have those definitions. And so we're just updating everything so that going forward it makes your job easier.
Okay. Thank you.
One other change to this ordinance as well that isn't necessarily in the state statute, but one change that we wanted to make was currently the appointments for this board are in January, which is out of the norm for our regular appointments. Typically, the appointments happen in April after the election. And so we've made a proposed change to change the appointments of this board to match all of our other city appointments to April. Any questions on it?
And it's a lot of good work putting that together.
Yeah, okay, great. So then, like I said, if there are, and absolutely to feel free to email me, or if there's things you see along the way, if you're reading this is your reading material before bed. But this then will go to the Plan Commission for a public hearing, and then it'll be moved on to the City Council for final approval. Then it'll officially go into effect.
Thank you. Adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.